Is intended to be a follow-up session for anyone who has any questions, would like to see me re-demonstrate some of the features if you need to see it again or in more detail. Basically anything that you would like more information on. So this is a very unstructured session, and I will mostly be leaving it in your hands to let me know if there are certain things you would prefer me to cover. If we don't have any specific questions, what I will probably do is run through the features and give people a chance to ask any questions as I go through the list. If you want to see me do a demo of that feature, or if you have any specific questions about that feature. Right now you're all muted. I'm happy to unmute you if you'd like to speak, because this is a more informal session. Or you can use our questions tool that's built into the GoToMeeting application to type in your question, and I will monitor the questions window to try and answer your questions. If you can also raise your hand if you want to. Sylvia, you've got your hand raised. I'm actually going to unraise it now so that I know if you would like to raise your hand to let me know you want to speak. If you do raise your hand, I can unmute you and give you a chance to speak if you prefer that to answering questions or typing in questions. So, does anyone have any questions off the bat that I can address, or shall I pull out my list of features and go through that list again? Okay, so I will then do exactly as I say, and I'll pull out the list of features and I'll run through the list. And what I'm hoping is that if you have any questions or would like another demonstration of any particular feature, you will let me know. And otherwise, we'll just, it may be a very short session if everyone's comfortable with all the new features. Okay. All right, so this is my little list of the features that are part of this release. So I'll be running through this list and giving you an opportunity to let me know if you'd like me to go into detail, further detail about anything. We'll start from the top of the list. First is our multi-member database. We didn't go into a lot of detail about this particular feature at our Thursday demo because this is a very big change, and I can certainly spend some time today giving some demonstration of how sharing profiles work and so on if you're interested. Our multi-member database is designed to allow more than one CIOC member to be part of the same database. So while still maintaining your own membership. That means a lot of your information is still private to you, and you have control over a lot of setup items. You don't have to share all the setup items with other agencies in your database. Currently, we have quite a number of agencies that are working together in the same database. That's very common, and some of our CIOC members have already merged together to join into a single database. However, they've done it at the expense of private control. So everybody in the database has access to everyone else's stuff, whether that be setup items or records and so on. How this differs is that you would continue to have private control over all of your records. So if you didn't want another member in the same database to have access to any of your records, you have that choice. If you do want to share your records, you can choose specific parts of the record to share, specific records you want to share, and you don't have to share all your records in the same way. So if you have some records that you just want to share on a general basis because multiple people in the province need a particular record that's located in your area but served provincially, and you want to be able to give them access to use that record so they don't have to duplicate the effort, that might be one kind of sharing profile you would set up that might include all of the fields. But you might have another special project that requires a particular type of record, and maybe they need different fields for that project, and it involves a larger set of data from your database. Well, you can set those records up in a different profile and share different fields and different records. And you have control over how those records are used in many ways. That includes whether they can be exported, whether they can be printed using the print tools, again, which fields they have access to, whether they have access to fields marked as private, all of those things. So it's really a decision-making process on a record-by-record basis about how you want your partner to access them. So that's the basics of the multi-member system. If we do have anyone interested in investigating this, either because you're already in a multi-agency database and you each want to have more private control, or you work very closely with maybe close geographic partners and you're interested in investigating the advantages of being together in the same database, but you still want to retain your private control, you can contact me directly and I could discuss what would be involved in moving to that kind of a model. Okay, if there aren't any questions specifically on the multi-member database, then I will move on to the next item. Do you have any questions about the multi-member? Okay, everyone can hear me, right? All right. So next we'll talk about some of the communities changes. And one thing that I'm going to show today that I didn't show at the in Thursday's session is our communities repository. Okay, so this is our new communities repository, and anyone who would like to get access to it is welcome to use the built-in account request form. Now, where is this site? This is community-repository.cioc.ca, as you can see right here. We expect in the next month or two to be doing some further communications about the communities repository and updating everyone's communities to use the common data in the communities repository if you wish to. So I'm not going to, if you don't want to get an account now, it's sort of getting ahead of yourself to do that now, but I do want to give you that opportunity if you want to browse around, make some suggestions for your area and so on. It's live and you're certainly welcome to request an account. Information about the communities repository is on the main page here, and you'll see a link to the request account page. And on that page you can request either a user account, which is just for looking at the communities repository data and making suggestions about changes to communities. Or when you request an account, if you want to request data management privileges for your geographic area, you can make that request. We are trying to limit the number of data managers that we have working in the repository because we want to promote consistency. So we'll be using a feature that's kind of like the feedback feature on the regular CIOC software, where people can suggest changes to data managers. So in general, we would encourage you to do that, at least within Ontario, as we do have a few people who have already stepped forward to do data management for Ontario. But if you wish to have administrative privileges, you're certainly welcome to ask for them when you sign up, and we can consider it from there. So once you have your account, hopefully I have a login saved. We'll wait there for a minute. This is what our communities repository looks like. I have administrative privileges, so I would have access to some features that wouldn't be available to those who have a view-only access to the communities repository. Some of the features that we've built into our repository we do hope to bring over to the regular software soon, including the ability to browse through geographic regions, as you see here, in the same way that we would do a drill down in the taxonomy. Just like our drill down in the taxonomy, you can click any of the communities for more information about that community. It would tell you who manages it, what alternate names have been provided, including in other languages, what province, state, or country it's assigned to, and so on. And child communities would obviously be anything that's contained underneath that particular one. We have the ability to do a new community or new alternate search area. We discussed alternate search areas in the demo on Thursday, but just for those who weren't there, an alternate search area is something that doesn't belong in this hierarchy, meaning it doesn't fit nicely in a I have one parent and these are my children kind of structure. It might have little pieces of various communities or bring a bunch of different communities that are in different areas of the hierarchy together. So our alternate search areas give us the opportunity to group a bunch of these hierarchy communities in a different way with its own name. And those we'll have some that are official as part of what we distribute from the community repository. And you obviously have the option to create local ones as well in your own database for your own reasons. If you have particular search areas that a client wants to be able to search by, you could easily create those locally in your own database and not have them be part of what everyone uses in a standardized fashion. Every once in a while, we'll have our data managers suggest to us, Chris and I, that they would like to publish a release of the community's repository, and at that time they would contact us and we would publish a new file. So this publish new file link is just for Chris and I, and that actually creates a download file which is dated like so. That's then available for any of the users to download and upload into their CIOC software if they wish to. So that's totally under your control. Similar to how the taxonomy management works, we do have a change history so that you can see what's been changed, when, what kind of change was made. They have the opportunity to provide a comment, who did the changing, and so on. So that for every release of the community's repository, we have a record of all of the various changes that were made at that time. Okay, and so each time we publish a file, it's going to incorporate all the changes that were made from the last time a file was published to the new one. And it will always keep all old versions of the file. So right now we only have one published, but if we published a new one, it wouldn't get rid of the previous release. So if people want to standardize on a particular release, they can do that and get that at any time, because we will keep the old versions as long as they're compatible with the software, as long as we don't make any change that's so significant that an older version of the file wouldn't work with the software anymore. Okay, I have a question. Kelly wants to know what the file is used for. Okay, so here we go. From within the regular CIOC software, in your community setup, you'll now have a link called Update Communities Version. Okay. So only the super user or whoever is generally in charge of doing the major setup for your site should be doing this. But this area here is where you'd put the file. Okay, so upload community file, you would browse for the file that you downloaded from the community site, click upload file, and that's it. It would update your community's data. And we do not want you doing it yet. I mean, you can, but we prefer you not do it yet. We know that there's going to be some hiccups because people are extremely out of date. Some people are 6, 7, even more years out of date in terms of keeping their community synchronized with everyone else. So we do anticipate that there are going to be some challenges with the first update, things that are not going to update very nicely. So we do want to give people lots of information about how to do this and how to deal with the things that don't update nicely, and certainly to work with us if they have any issues. So we encourage you to wait until we get in touch with you about when we would like you to do it, what release of the community's repository, at least in Ontario, that they would like you to use in order to be consistent throughout the province and so on. But when the time comes, you would save that file from the community site, so you just right-click and save link as. And then from your regular CIOC software, you would browse for the file, hit upload file, and that's it. That's the entire complexity of the process. It's very, very simple. Okay, does that clarify for you, Kelly? Okay, great. So that's again a little more than what I was able to give you at the Thursday session. Does anyone have any questions about the multiple names for communities or the alternative search areas and so on? Do I need to go any further detail about those? Anything that wasn't clear based on Thursday's session? as I indicated on Thursday, I'm happy to help people specifically with the alternative area boundaries. If you have some challenging geographic areas, we'd certainly like to promote consistency in the way that people choose to cope with those challenges. So we would encourage you to post on the message board and hopefully make everyone aware of these challenges and make some decisions together about the best way to set these up so that everyone is handling those things in the same way. Philip's asking, how are you handling communities that are in 2 areas? So that is exactly what alternative area boundaries are for. So what you would do is you would create, well, I would have to know a little bit about where
they have a city
that straddles provincial borders. I know that.
No, they have one that straddles a river. So there's two communities with the same name on either side, and they're, as far as I understand, they're both part of a different region.
They've also got one that crosses Alberta.
Sure, right.
Yeah, right. So I think we would address each individual case and give you a suggestion, and certainly hopefully get input from other people who are dealing with the same challenges about what the best setup options are. But it's going to use some kind of an alternative search area, because that's the only way to grab 2 different areas that are in different parts of the hierarchy and slap them together. And it works in a very simple way of you make a name and then you pick which communities will be searched behind the scenes in order to make that happen. In some cases, we might be encouraging you, if for instance, there's a generally accepted way of splitting something up, so they call it north this and south that, and then you need one that brings the 2 together, then in that case you would create the north such and south such and such, and you would put them in their proper parents, and then you would create an alternative search area that has the name of the entire area and include the north and the south half inside of it. But again, we're happy if you give specific examples to give you a little bit of guidance about how to configure that. Okay, so the message board is definitely a place to do it, because I want people to know what these challenges are so that we can be consistent in our recommendations, and people can give their own opinions about how they think we should best be handling each kind of case that comes up. And certainly if we find cases that we can't handle properly from a technical point of view, then we need to know that, and maybe we need to make some changes to what we're doing to make sure that we can cover all the cases.
We also don't do that until Find Help is updated if you're providing records to Find Help.
Although you can have local, well, yeah, that's right. So Chris is suggesting, and we stated in our alert announcement, that for those in Ontario, not to use any of the new features of the communities until there's an announcement from Find Help that they have updated their software. Because as soon as you start adding and alternative search areas into your communities, they have no way to handle that until they get an upgrade. So the format of sending data to Find Help or to anyone else in the CIOC database hasn't changed for the most part between the last version of the software and the current one, and you'll be fine to continue sending to an older version of the software as long as you do not start using any of the new community features. If you begin using these new community features, they're not going to be compatible with the older version of the software, obviously. So it could cause you some trouble if you try and send a file after you've added a new alternative search area, or it's specifically the alternative search area in the new province, state, country option that you can add to a community. But you can't do that until whoever you're sending data to can accommodate those changes. Okay, just one second, I've got another question here. Sorry, so someone who missed a little bit at the beginning of the session wanted to know how to make suggestions about changes to the community. So I mentioned that you're all welcome to go ahead and request an account on the communities repository. And when you do, you'll see this suggest change. And this is a form for you to outline any suggestions that you would like to make to the data managers. And they would receive that in this suggestions page. This is test data. Whatever has been sent to them, and when they complete it, they would mark it completed to say that they processed your suggestion. So it just comes in as a note to the data manager, and all you do is click suggest change. So if you would like to suggest a change to what's there, you can certainly, I would suggest you first view the current status of the community's data, so you know that your change hasn't already been made. And then if you still need a change, you just click suggest change. Okay. So are we expecting communities from Saskatchewan or Alberta? So we have some Saskatchewan communities in here, but we have to sort of sort out the licensing agreement, the arrangement for having that information in there, and whether we're distributing it to everyone. But in the long run, we do hope that every province will have the opportunity to make use of this. So that's the situation. I'm assuming that when we do our big communication to all our members about using this, that part of what will accompany that is a bit of guidance about our members in other provinces and even our non-members in other provinces, and if they want to contribute to the repository or make use of what's in it, what the steps are. But certainly in the long run, we do hope that this is going to be something that covers all the provinces, and that then all the province information would be available to everyone. Okay, so that's our community's information. I expect most of you have already tried out any of the search changes that you're actually interested in. I'll run through them I'll run through the important ones really quickly, which is the refine your search, the recent search history, displaying the details of your search, the auto quote organization names. So I'm going to run through quickly what those are, and then if you have any questions about those or any of the other ones in my list here, I'll be happy to go through them. So we have three very tightly related changes here with refine your search, recent search history, and the save user preferences for display the details of my search. All three of these features were designed to work together, so I'm going to talk about them as one thing. So refine your search is now available to any logged in user from any search page, any kind of search page, NAICS, childcare, taxonomy, thesaurus, browse by organization, saved search, my list, anything. So any kind of search that you can do, you can now do a refine your search. So here I am, browse by organization. I can refine my search. It sends me to the advanced search page. It gives me information at the top of the advanced search page about the search that I'm refining, so when it was searched and whatever I was searching for. Now the key thing about what I was searching for is it relies on you doing a search that tells you what you searched for. So that is where the enhancement to remember, display the details of my search comes in. Because if you want to have the details of your search available for refine your search and also for the recent searches feature, and also, frankly, for the saved search feature, since when you do a saved search, it will bring that information over into your saved search form, you're going to want to make sure that you click display the details of my search. If you don't, it's not going to give you the detail of your search. You're going to get nothing. So I'll try it first without. So you see I get nothing when I do refine your search this time. Oh, it's remembering my browse by organization because I already did it.
You didn't change the search.
I didn't change the search. Let me try it with new criteria. It's too smart for me. Here we go. We'll do Hamilton and Toronto. Nothing. Very useful. I need a search with more records. Oh, S. That always has lots. Here we go. Refine my search. And then I'll do Burlington. Okay. So now if I refine my search, it knows nothing about the content of my search, and it's just going to say my previous search results because it doesn't understand anything about the description of my search. Whereas if I run that search again, and this time I say display the details of my search, now it knows, you can see it prints out what I did, and if I do refine search this time, it's going to give me the content. Okay, that's why that's so important. And the enhancement that we did was that it remembers. So you don't have to keep clicking this every single time. It's going to remember it for your session. Now your session doesn't last forever. Your session should last you all day or until you log out. But it will not last forever. So that likely means that every day you're going to be clicking this at least once. I expect we'll do a further enhancement that's going to let you save that preference for the longer term so that it would maybe reload your preferences every time you log in at the very least, because we don't want this to get annoying. We also did the save preference for search results in new windows. So for those who like to use that feature, I know that that's one that the child care search form, it's used somewhat often to do multiple searches for different children. So if you want that saved as a default, it would also remember that preference. Okay, so along with the refine your search feature, connected to that is our recent searches feature. So this will hold up to 20 of your most recent searches. It does not hold duplicates, so it's 20 unique searches. If it detects two searches that are exactly the same, it will bump the old one up in your list rather than make a new entry. So if I keep searching the same thing over and over and over again, I'm not going to fill my whole list with the same search. It tries to be useful by giving you only unique searches. From your recent search page, you can either do the search again or refine it. And again, I mentioned on Thursday, if you put your mouse over the count of records, it tells you where that count is from because, of course, depending on the view you're working in or the language you're working in, that's going to influence the number of records that you've got. So in this case, I performed my search in view number 2, CIOC data management, and I was searching in English. If I wanted to redo that search in French, I can, or in a different view, I can switch to whatever and go to my recent searches, execute the exact same search again, and I'm going to get only 4 records this time because this view obviously limits in a way that the other one didn't. So now when I put my mouse over it, it's going to tell me I got 4 records in the Game Hamilton view in English because it remembers whatever your last search was. Note that when you switch languages, it's not going to switch the languages of either the date and time of your search or the text of your search because those are stored exactly as they are along with your search in your session. So it can't translate that information for you. And so as you flip languages, it's going to continue to show the information about the search in the language that you performed it in. Are there any questions about those searching features or any of the other ones in my list? I'll bring my list up here. I mentioned on Thursday that we can add this to the public if there is a desire. We would, instead of sending them to the advanced search form, simply send them back to the basic search form, and it would work exactly the same way where it would print at the top what you're refining. And in fact, we can even give them access to recent searches. So if that's a feature that people desire for their public sites, ask for it, and we'll put it in the list. You can vote it up, and now that we've done the work, it's actually a pretty minor change for us to add that in for the public if that's desired. Question here. Recent searches is in that session for the public. Yes, so the same way that you can get access to your recent searches here, we could give the public access to the same page showing all of their recent searches. It obviously wouldn't show what view they were working in or anything like that, but it would be basically the same kind of thing where it would say what they searched for, how many records they returned, and it would give them the opportunity to research or refine their search. So we can give them exactly the same functionality other than telling them what record and language they were searching in, because that's irrelevant to the public. But there's no reason why this has to be a staff-only feature. This can certainly be a public feature if that's desired. I'll bring this list up again just to make sure no one's got any questions on any of these search features. Oh, the auto-quote organization names. I'm actually not even convinced that I demoed this on Thursday somehow. So I'm going to demo it just to make sure. So we received complaints that when people were typing in organization names, it's probably not a good place to do it from. Here we go. Say I'm searching Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Hamilton, and Burlington. The complaint we were getting was this would end up returning records other than the one that they had clicked, because, of course, it was searching just like keywords in any spot in the database, if you hadn't, especially if you hadn't clicked the organization names button. So the change that we've made is when you pick from the list, it's going to automatically put quotation marks around it behind the scenes, so that you only receive the specific record that you had picked. So be aware of that, that it has, though you can't see them, it has put these quotation marks around if you pick from the list. So this only applies when you actually click down and pick from the list. Or, no, you don't.
If you have exactly what's in the thing from the list, even if you don't click down, but if you put an extra space or something, then it'll.
Yeah, if you don't want it to match, a space should hopefully do it. So there you go. So this is what it used to search, and you can see how it got lots of things that have nothing to do with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Canada as the name of the organization. So that was me with putting a space at the end. If I do the same search, I won't put the space at the end. One record. Okay? It's important that you understand that it's doing this so that you're comfortable with the results it's returning, but we hope this will cause a lot of less frustration. Kelly is thrilled, so there you go. We're glad you're thrilled, Kelly. So yes, let's make sure that all your staff are aware that this change has happened, so they're not confused about why all of a sudden they're getting different kinds of results than what they used to get. And if possible, tell them about the little space trick, so that if they want to search it as keywords and not as an exact match, all they have to do is put that little space at the end, and it will fix it. It will make it so that it searches just the same way that it used to search. Okay? So sorry I didn't demo that on Thursday, and all you people who came today get the details.
But there's a video on YouTube anyway,
right.
Just on that feature. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and that's, unless anyone has any questions on any of the others, I'll leave the search features. Okay. Most of these setup and security are really dull. So, I think the only one I'll cover, if people want, do people want a review of the social media changes for web developer? I've got a question here. I don't see the social media upgrade. Okay, so yes, here, let's explain about the social media. So unless you activate all our social media changes, you won't see them. So what I'll go through today is a review of how to start using the social media field so that you can actually do something with them, because the way we try and do upgrades is that we don't want to change what you have already. We don't want to assume that you want things. So we leave it to you to add these things if you want to use them. So as it stands as the upgrade, you're not going to see any of the social media things unless you change it to have that ability. Geraldine's asking if it's only super users can make the change. Yes. The changes are done within the view setup. So you need to have super user privileges in order to go into the view setup and make the two changes that are required to use each of the two social media features.
That's why there's two videos on YouTube, because one is how to use it, and the other one is use your super user. Watch this video and set it up.
Right. So if you want to have a step-by-step walk you through it of how to do the setup, Chris has made a video that's specifically about doing the setup changes, but I'll also just do a quick review now so that you know. I'll go into the setup area. So both of the features, sorry, both of the features are part of the view setup. And I'll review again quickly what the difference between the two are. So the first one is the one for sharing the record. So this is me and my Facebook account or my Twitter account personally, and I want to share a record with all of my friends. So this adds to the top of the record a little set of bubbles that they can click to share a link to that record with others. All right, so this is not about the Facebook page or the Twitter feed or whatever of the organization or volunteer opportunity. This is about the user, the person who is looking at the record, using social media to share that resource with other people. Okay, so that's feature one. If you want to add this to your record, then all you do is click social media field, show social media share buttons in the record details header. Okay, it uses the service called Add This. Please read the privacy profile of Add This and make sure that you are comfortable with it before you start using this service. Obviously, we thought it was an okay service to use, or we would not have put it in. This is the same service that's used by a very large majority of the major public sites out there, like CBC and so on. So this is not some strange, unknown service. This is a very well-known service, but I still want everyone to be comfortable with how privacy works, understanding that all of these social media sites, in order to have these kinds of features where they connect your personal Twitter feed and Facebook account and so on with their page, there is a certain amount of private information that is shared to make that possible. So if you are on somebody's webpage and you click like, that connection of your Facebook account and Facebook has to know something about you being on that page and clicking like, so it connects you to that site and that page. And I think most people are, in this day and age, are aware of that, but because not everyone is, I want to make sure that people understand the full details of this. Philip's asking, can you choose to share with Twitter but not Facebook? So the way to add this service works, and I'll quickly just bring up a record details that has the feature so that we can all have a look at it. The way to add this service works, here it is over in this corner here. We've configured some defaults to show here different services, but Add This is actually geared to the user. So I can click settings and tell Add This what my personal preferences are for the services that I like to use. So it's about the actual person looking at the page. It's not something you set up for your whole site, but rather each individual person who comes to your site may have set up different preferences with the service Add This, and based on their preferences, that's what it would show here. Okay, so there's a default for people who haven't configured preferences with the Add This service, which show, I think this is, we've got email, Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, and then if you click the Add This icon, you can have
that's already been modified based on you at that point.
You can add many, many different services, okay? And again, there's the link to the privacy policy if you want to understand how all this works, and so on. So the user would click on the particular service that they would like to use. So it's not like it forces you into using any of them. And even when I click Facebook, it's still going to give me a chance to decide that I really want to do that. So until I actually write something and click share, it's not going to do it. So it's not like I accidentally clicked the Facebook icon and that's it. It's posted it to my wall. No. You are given an opportunity to actually confirm that that's what you intended to do.
And it adds things like the ability to send to email. Pretty much every webmail you can think of is there. So if they don't use a real email client, but they use something like Gmail, then it takes care of that for them. They can explicitly pick the things they want to use, but it will also so even if they don't do that, we'll know the things that they use and put that into the 4 that show up there.
Okay, so if you don't use these services, then it's not going to be doing anything. But so that's our first feature. And again, if you want to use that, then you go into your view setup and you click that show social media share buttons in the record details header, okay, from the view setup. Now our other social media feature, pardon me, I'm flipping too many sites here. Our other social media feature is about the record. So I'm actually going to find a record where I put something in. Okay, so I've got various social media test records. Okay, so here is the social media about the organization. All right, the actual services that you want to use are configured for your entire database. So everyone in the same database has to choose to use the same services. We've configured a pretty big number of services and ones that we thought were applicable to either the volunteer software or the community information software. There are hundreds of social media sites out there, and not all of them really apply to the type of thing that you're doing with the records in your database. So it didn't make sense to have them all. So we picked what we thought was a fair list, and then you should go in and activate or deactivate whichever ones you think are appropriate for you in terms of what you want to have on your data entry forms. If you want to add a service that isn't there, you have to contact us, because we need to go into our little icon library and put in the appropriate icon so that they all match. They're all the same size and so on. And we have quite a large number of icons in the same icon set for various social media sites. So you just need to let us know if there's a site that we're not including that you would like to have. Once you have activated them, in terms of decided which ones you want to have on your data entry form, which you do from, pardon me, I'm going to go back to the main menu and show you where that is. From social media types here in the setup menu, here's your list. And again, it doesn't help you to click create new unless you talk to us first, because we have to put the icon on the site. Until we can do that for you, you will not be able to create a new one. For any of the ones that you want to deactivate, it's simply a matter of picking it. If you don't want posterists, you just come in here and unclick active, and it will not appear on your forms. It's not going to take away any of the data that's already been entered by record, but it's going to make it not available for any new records for you to do new data entry on. All right, so assuming you've configured the ones that you want to be active, the next step is to actually add that social media field to your various pages. So you're going to need to add it to minimally 3 and maybe 4 different areas if you use mail forms. So first and foremost, you have to be able to actually enter the data in your records. You're going to want to go into update fields and look for the field called social media. Okay, and decide where you want it on your form. Do the same for your details page and your feedback field. We mentioned on Thursday, but it's worth mentioning again that we've set up the feedback forms to look exactly like the update forms. So they would be presented with the same kind of interface that you as the data manager would be getting, so they can see all the types of social media that you support and enter in whatever applies to them and their records. And whatever you remove from this list will not show up for them to add. Okay, are there any questions about how social media works? And again, eventually if they find help wanted to include these fields, or someone else that you share records with want to include this, you have to be using the new version of the sharing format for sharing records if you want to be able to share social media. Do not add the social media field to your exports unless the person at the other end is ready to receive them. If you added the social media field to your Find Help export, it would blow them off at the other end until they're upgraded. So that's one of the fields you need to keep out of your exports unless the person at the other end is ready to actually start using that new field. Okay. So I'm not, I think most of these are pretty boring and straightforward. So unless anyone has any, oh, so we've got someone who wants to see information on multiple standard. Yep, absolutely. I will do the multiple standard email update text values in the data management section. I'm just going to make sure no one has any remaining questions on our setup and security section. Most of them are really straightforward, kind of dull features. So I don't know if there's too much more to demonstrate over what was already done on Thursday or what's available in the videos, but if you have any questions. Okay, so since we have a request, I'll start out in our data management section. I'll start out by talking about our feature for multiple standard email update text values. So this will hopefully be very useful to those of you who do have multiple agencies working in the same database. If you want to start creating multiple messages, you do it through the setup menu, not surprisingly. So we've always had our link to standard email update text, but now instead of taking you right to the form, you have this interim screen which gives you an opportunity to select specific messages to edit and also the ability to create a new standard message. One of them is your default, always, so you can only have one default. If you, while you're editing, you change something and say it's the default, then it will take the other one and make it not the default. And then you have all your additional messages. So there's always one, exactly one default, and then any number of additional messages that you would like. The form for editing is exactly the same as it always was. The only difference here, obviously, is you can have multiple values. So you have to provide each one of them with their own unique name, and you have the ability to change the default message. Now, I can't make this not the default message from this page because, of course, I always have to have a default. So if I want to change the default, I actually have to go to the one that I want to be the default and change it from there. So once you have, sorry, there's a question. Additional message can be done by anyone or only super user? Only super user. Everything in the setup menu can only be modified by a super user for the most part. The only exceptions are publications, obviously has its own permissions. And if we have our new web developer user type option, which allows editing of templates and template layouts. But other than that, all of these setup items are all controlled exclusively by super users. So if you want to make any of these changes, you'll have to work with your local super user. Okay, so for actually sending an email update request, there's now the ability to change or to select a message at the time of sending. So if you want to change your message, just pick the new one, hit change message, and that made it really incredibly, here we go. This is the subtlest change ever. So here we have e-mail, and here we have email, lowercase with no dash. So you can see that it's changing the message. And then from there you have the same ability you've always had to edit the message at the time of sending. So even as you pick different messages, you can still modify those messages at the time of sending. So the setup of the messages has to be done by your super user, but once they're in place, they're available to anyone who can send email update requests. And everyone will get access, everyone in the same database gets access to all the different types of messages that are available. Okay, is there anything else in this data management section that anyone would like me to cover? I've already covered all of these on Thursday, so if there's nothing specific. Okay. And I think we've got pretty straightforward stuff except for the taxonomy tools, which I'll maybe spend a little more time on today. Is there anything else in this list other than the taxonomy that anyone would like me to cover today? give you a moment to look at it. Improvement to the volunteer account verification process. There's not much to look at here, and it would be pretty tough for me to demo. So all that we've done there is a review of the text that gets sent in emails to your people who apply for volunteer profiles. If you are not currently using volunteer profiles and you want to use them, a reminder that you can ask us to activate volunteer profiles in your database at any time. And then in order to start using it, you need to go into your view setup. And say that profiles are available. There we go. So this particular setting, volunteer profiles, links, searches are available in this view has to be set in order to actually be using volunteer profiles. As soon as you do that, as long as the view is public and you're not logged into the database, you'll have access to all the volunteer profile tools. The issue we were having was the text around the profile confirmation was confusing. We have a confirmation process in place because otherwise we would get a whole bunch of spammers trying to sign up for profiles or automated bots creating profiles. It's a well-known problem that occurs on message boards and all kinds of things like that. So we need to have a way to confirm that the email addresses that are provided by real people and are real email addresses. And that's done using a confirmation token, which is a little code that's attached to the account when it's set up. And it's emailed to the person in the form of a link in their email. And when they click on that link, it sends the token back to the software and says, this person is using a real legitimate email, and you can activate the account. The issue we were having is people were clicking on the confirmation link and then trying to click on it again later, and then of course it would yell at them and say there was no confirmation process, and we're getting issues. What's the confirmation process? And people just didn't understand how this whole confirmation process worked. Because although it's quite common on many sites now, we still do have some people who haven't been through that type of a confirmation process where you have to wait till you get emailed a link and click on the confirmation link and so on. So for those rare folks who don't understand how the process works, we just needed to improve our wording a little. So there's no major changes there. It's just a general wording improvement. Kelly had some questions about how are volunteer profiles generally working. Some of our members have thousands. So I would say for those who are using it and promoting it, it's working fantastically well. We have a few members who have hundreds of volunteer profiles, and we have at least one member that has well over 1,000, maybe even 2,000 profiles that are active. So I would say that it's working very effectively for those who are choosing to use it. And yeah, so if you're not using it now and you would like to, and it hasn't been activated in your database, you just have to give us a shout and we'll turn it on. Okay, so I'll bring up my list again. So again, anything other than taxonomy tools, because I'll review the taxonomy tools. Okay, well, then I will stick right to the taxonomy tools. All right. So these taxonomy tools only apply to super users because they are to do with activations in the taxonomy. So from within Manage Taxonomy, you now have access to two new tools. One is an activation recommendation report, and one is an activation tool. Start with the activation tool. The activation tool is a way for you to do activations on the fly with as many different terms as you want. So instead of having to go into each term individually to activate or deactivate, you can now, sorry, I'm in a multi-member database, so I'm going to switch to a view which is more like what you'll see, which is the taxonomy activations that affect the whole database. So this is the only version that all of you will see because you're all working in a database with just one member at the moment. In a multi-member database, we have local and global. Global affects everybody in the same database, and then local is you can do your own activations within the scope of whatever has been activated for everyone in the whole database. So it's a compromise between trying to keep people in the same database, using pretty much the same taxonomy terms, at least narrowing down the differences, and also understanding that on a local level, people are going to have certain preferences about what they activate. So we want to do a best of both worlds thing and allow some global control where we're trying to keep people in a confined area, and then the local customization so that you have some wiggle room within that range. So you'll see three icons in this activation tool. One is the activate, the green check mark. One is the deactivate, the red X. And the other is the orange up arrow, which is your roll up. For those who've never tried using the roll up feature, which I expect is actually quite a lot of people, rolling up a term is a way of deactivating it which makes it into a use reference. So in order to do a roll-up, you have to have an active term above it. So in this case, the active term above community-wide food storage facilities is food, which, by the way, you should never activate because it's a very high-level term. But let's just say that you do have a situation like this and you don't want to use this term, but you want people to be able to have it come up in searches and suggest a preferred term for it. If you click roll up like that, then what will happen is if someone searches community-wide food storage facilities, it will suggest the term food instead. So it will search this just as if it was a synonym of the one that it's rolling up to. A term that is rolled up will be demonstrated by the little red arrow right in front of the name. And of course it's red because it's inactivated. So we have a combination of it being inactive and rolled up. So a rolled up term is inactive, but it's also a use reference. So it's still treated like an inactive term to a large degree, but we also allow it to act as a use reference for the first active term above it. So you have to have an active term somewhere above that term in order to do it. We have a question, how do you unroll the term? So you can unroll it by either activating it or making it a simple deactivation. So if I decide I don't actually want that rolled up, I can deactivate it, and then it will just be a regular inactive term, not a rolled up term. I could also obviously have chosen to activate it, and it would be a fully active term which you could add to records. So it's a pretty simple tool. You'll notice that it doesn't let you do just whatever you want. It works on certain rules. So I can't activate and then deactivate and then activate along a branch. You have to activate in succession. I'll give a demonstration of that. I have a question. Does it let you deactivate things that are attached to records? No. Simple answer. So that's one of the rules. Once a term is activated, or once a term is added to record, it's locked in an activated position. So it's impossible to either roll it up or inactivate it. As you'll see here, I don't have any icons next to this term. That's because there are records associated with it, so I can't have it in any state other than active. So it's not going to give me an opportunity to change that. You'll notice meals has no record, and yet I can't do anything with it. That means that there's an active record underneath it. So the rules that it enforces is if you have activation at multiple levels, which is discouraged, strongly discouraged, you can't sort of hop in and out all throughout the branch. So if you want to activate a section of the branch at multiple levels, it has to be one after the other. So you have to activate in what we would call a window where if I'm going to activate this term at after-school meal programs, and I'm also going to activate food, I have to also activate the term in the middle, which is meals. Okay, so that's why this one is not allowing me to deactivate it, even though it doesn't have any records. If I manage to take all the records out of food and deactivate food, I would be allowed to deactivate meals as well. But as long as I have the one above it active and the one below it active, it forces me to activate the one in the middle. Okay, so yes, there's various rules about activation that it's going to enforce upon you. Speaking of rules being enforced upon you with activations, I'll now demonstrate the other tool, which is our activation recommendation report. So the state of people's taxonomy at the time of the upgrade is not necessarily going to obey some of the rules that we just talked about. It's possible that there are certain things that have been activated that break best practices. Either you have multi-level activations, you have inactive terms that have records attached to them, you have activation at one level, then a deactivation, then an activation, all on the same branch, all of these things that are not good practices. So, and also having a branch with nothing active, so that there's nothing along that branch for you to use. So all of these things that are not recommended, the software is going to automatically run an analysis on your taxonomy and suggest to you changes that you should make to bring it in line with recommended practices. So if it detects, for instance, that you have what we call a multi-level activation, where you've activated at more than one level of the same branch of the taxonomy, and you're not using one of those levels, then it's going to recommend that you inactivate it. So all of these terms here that say inactive, 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 it's making that recommendation because you already have something active and in use by a record on that branch. And so it doesn't think that you should have this other level active when you already have an active term on that branch and you're using it in records. So that's the criteria it's using here. It's not just about having more than one level active. One of those levels or more has to have actual records attached to them so that it can make a decision about which one you should inactivate. If you had an entire branch active but no records attached to it, it wouldn't be able to make a recommendation to you because it wouldn't know which one should be the one that it leaves active. So you won't see, in that particular circumstance, you won't see a recommendation about what to inactivate on that branch until you decide to go and add one of those terms to a record. The second you do that, it will try and standardize on that level all the way across. So then it will start making recommendations to you about what you should be deactivating. You have the option in this tool of suggesting new activations. So new activations are branches of the taxonomy where you have not activated anything, or cases where you have activated some of the terms at a level, but not all of them. So we'll take as an example this one here, the DV8950. Let me open a new window here. So let's find BV8950 and see what we've got. In mode. Okay, so here we go. We have on this branch, I've activated its sibling terms, utility assistants, and utility service providers, but I haven't activated the third term at the same level. So this goes against best practices, which is to activate everything at the same level of a single branch. So it's going to recommend to me that in order to follow best practices, I have to activate this term, and then that entire level of that branch will be activated. Okay, so if I want to accept the recommendations, all I have to do is do the check boxes, and it will accept it. If you have a huge list like this one, don't just, you could just accept the whole list. It wouldn't do anything bad. But I don't particularly recommend it. I would prefer that people do it in small batches and sort of are thoughtful about what changes are being made. It's It's not going to do anything harmful if you just accept everything in the list. If you have a huge list like this, probably accepting everything in the list is better than what you've got now, would be my guess. But I do encourage you to be thoughtful so that you do have a consistent list and that you can make some really conscious decisions about what you would like to do with your activations. But if you have a massive list, I would click uncheck all and just decide on a one-off basis, go through and actually manually pick the ones that you want to accept, the recommendations you want to accept. You have some options to work with this report. So right now, because I'm in a multi-member database, I'm actually working in what's called a local activation. So if you were in a multi-member database, you can get separate recommendations for your global activation, which affects all of the members in the database, or your local activations, which just affect you and your membership. So these are various settings that you can do to change the recommendations that you get. You'll notice I have exclude Y branch. That applies to the inactivation section only. The issue is there's not a rule about having multi-level activation on the Y branch, which is your target population. It's perfectly okay to have multiple levels of activation on the Y branch. And so by default, we exclude the Y branch from recommendations because there's no problem with the multi-level activations on the Y branch. So if you want to standardize on the Y branch, or at least view what the recommendations would be, you're welcome to disable this feature and regenerate your report. The recommending new activations is an option, so if you don't want to have new activations recommended to you, you can turn that feature off. We also have an option to roll up lower level terms. So if you're running a report and it's trying to standardize a multi-level activation problem, and your one that's being deactivated is underneath another active term, you have the option to have it roll up. So we just discussed rolling up terms and that it makes it a use reference of the one above it. So if you want to, when you run this report, instead of deactivating any of the lowest level terms, you can have it roll them up as use references instead. So that's an option that you can enable if you wish. So if let's say I do that, and I'll say change options. So hopefully, do we have anything roll up? If you were in that situation, in this column, instead of saying inactive, it should say roll up, but I don't think I actually have any that are in that situation now in my database. But you would be able to see that because instead of saying inactive, the action would say roll up in that case. Okay. Are there any questions about those two tools or anything else about the software changes? Okay. Well, questions don't end today, so if you still have any issues or questions after today's session, please go ahead and post on the message board and let us know, and we'll try and respond promptly. If some of these new features have inspired you to want other new features or prioritize other feature requests in our feature database, I encourage you to go there, review any voting you've done on features in the past, suggest new changes if, as I say, you've been inspired to other changes that you would like to see in the software, because we are, of course, going to start our last release of our OTS project within the next few weeks. So if you want your opinions on what should be in that new release to be reflected, then you'll need to promptly go and review our current list of features. And again, if you want to suggest a new feature, you're welcome to do that. I'll try and get it in the database quickly so that it can be available to be voted on by our members. For those not familiar, the address for our feature database is features.cioc.ca. The link would have been in the email that went out about the release. So features.cioc.ca. And the other thing for that for this site is that you can obviously review the whole list of features that are part of this release if you need a bit of a review of what's changed. All right, that's me done. I will leave. Oh, we've got. Does everyone on the alert list receive? Sorry. Does everyone on the alert list receive notifications about the YouTube training? Okay, so we have a YouTube channel with all our videos, and if you wish, you can subscribe to that channel to be notified as new videos are posted to our YouTube site. So we are continuing to add new training videos, and in fact, there are going to be many, many more added over the next about 4 months. We're going to try and have pretty much the entire software covered by October. So if you'd like to be notified as we put up new videos, either from this release or over the next 4 months as we try and create videos that cover all of the software, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, and it would then notify you every time we add new videos to that site. Okay, I hope everyone enjoys new features. We would really love to get your feedback on some of the new changes. It's extremely helpful to us and motivating as well to hear about which features you like, and it doesn't all have to be positive either. We like constructive criticism, so any information that you want to share with us about how you're using new features, what you like, what you don't like, we would really love to hear. So you're welcome to do that by email if you don't want to post about it on the message board or on the message board or anywhere you'd like, but we certainly love to get feedback. We have a question about the address for the YouTube channel. Where have we got a link? There should be a link up on the message board. Let me have a quick look. I don't have it bookmarked or anything. Here we go. If I go follow this link, it should give me the link to the channel. I think it's something like, yeah, youtube.com/user/CIOC training. So you can actually find us by user if you wish, just by searching for CIOC training. You should be able to find our account, and that will list all of the various videos that are available. And here's that lovely subscribe button if you want to be notified of whenever we put up new videos. And we've had, wow, almost 17,000 views of our videos, which, I mean, it's no David goes to the dentist, but not too bad anyway. All right, thanks very much for coming. Again, any more questions, please feel free to ask on the message board, and we'll try and answer them as quickly as we can. Have a good week, everyone. Thanks.